Now, if you are looking for the next big idea, what to build on Web3, which ideas are going to take you into the next generation of technology, Web3, AI, what are brands working on? To share that information with you, I would love to invite on stage Kahn. Greg is a founding partner at GK Digital Ventures, and I would love for Greg to introduce himself and his fellow panelists. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Sonia. Hello, everyone. Good morning. What a great first session, by the way. Nikhil he killed it. And having fun is what it's all about. I think just a brief introduction to myself, and if I can invite my fellow panelists to come start making their way up on stage. I'm Greg. I'm an investor and an advisor in the intersection of media, tech, and advertising through GK Digital Ventures. And I also run emerging tech exchange known as ETX. And ETX brings together governments, corporates, and startups around all emerging technology. Heavy focus on Web3, Metaverse, and AI tech. But I think this is a really interesting time for the space. As Nikhil mentioned, there's a lot of development that's taking place. And at the same time, we're coming off of a crypto winter and a Meta, as in the company Meta / Facebook, repivot. And so this session with 4 incredible speakers that will be joining me in a second, we'll talk about the future of what brands are doing in the space. And I've had the pleasure of working with many brands over the course of my career so far, including Disney and Procter & Gamble and Nestle and Comcast, just to name a few. But we're starting to see them dabble in the spaces of Web3, Metaverse, and AI. So if I can invite my incredible group up, starting with Tipatat, the best-dressed man in Web3 and Metaverse. Paula, joining us next. Dirk, the tallest man in Web3. And then certainly not least, Anand. And you snuck up behind me. Look at that. Always watch for the back. So if we could just have a round of applause for this great group. We only have about 20 minutes or so, and this could be a 4-hour session. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists just, and I say very briefly, 15 to 30 seconds to just share a little bit about what you do to set the context for this discussion. I'll start with Tipatat.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tipatat Chennavasin, general partner, co-founder of the Venture Reality Fund. So we are early stage investors in Metaverse, which for us means VR, AR, AI, Web3. And so we've been doing this for over 7 years now, and we've been involved with a couple unicorns, and we are super excited for this.
My name is Paula Reina. I'm the founder and CEO of Audio Chain. We are a music blockchain company. What we do is we create music rights NFT for sync licensing and sample clearance on the blockchain as well. We're using NFTs and entities as well. I am also the former blockchain business development director at Tron DAO, as well as listings, and also the director of business development for BitTorrent as well. And I've been in the blockchain space for 11 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Dirk. I'm co-founder, co-CEO of Upland. Upland is the Metaverse super app connected to the real world. And we're proud to say that we're today the largest Metaverse out there based on blockchain. We have partners like FIFA and since we're based on the real world, we started out here in Silicon Valley, but we're launching other cities around the globe. I'm also co-founder and chairman of the Open Metaverse Alliance for Web3, OMA3.org, if you want to check it out. Our vision is really to bring forward interoperability and the open metaverse.
Hi, my name is Anand. I've been in the space for about 4 or 5 years. I'm one of the 2 guys that bought the $69 million Beeple piece in March 2021. So you can blame me for some of the chaos, not all of it, maybe a tiny fraction of it. I'm currently the co-founder and CEO of Layer E. We help brands get into Web3 better by using NFTs as an infrastructure layer, plug-and-play infrastructure layer. That's actually a little sexier than it sounds, I promise you. We are also making blockchains conversational, where instead of going through a dozen processes to simply mint an NFT or to bridge your assets or something, you can just do it with a / command, / mint an NFT, and dive right in. So that's what I do. It's wonderful to be at this panel.
All right, we have a rock star panel, so we're going to jump in. We have about 20 minutes, and I'm going to start with Tipatat. Let's talk about brands and the future of customer experiences. And Tipatat, you're an investor in the space. From my lens, one of the leading investors in all emerging technology. You've seen the panoply of companies that have come through the space and have worked with brands. I mentioned that we're kind of coming off a period of crypto winter and challenging period for companies in general, right? So just to set the stage for the conversation, where do you think brands are in the space today? We see the media blowback that's coming from the space, but yet at the same time you have Starbucks, you have Nike kind of launching some really interesting campaigns in the space. So share your perspective on where we are today.
Again, we're still in very early stages of all this, but what we see, especially when we think about like metaverse in general, thinking about how many people, like when people are like, oh, the metaverse, it's far away, it doesn't really exist. No. Like if you have kids and you know Roblox has 60 million daily active users, half of the kids in the US are playing Roblox, 2 to 3 hours every day. The brand affinity that they're gonna have for things that they're growing up with at this crucial age of 10 to 14 years old, like the reason why I'm decked out in Pokemon head to toe is because this is what I played when I was at that age. And so knowing that the equivalent of me in 10 years will be wearing Adopt Me Roblox branded outfits, right? Like that's gonna be the truth of the matter. And so the smart brands are engaging early. And that's why we've seen, especially in fashion, right? Where they need to know how do they stay relevant? Well, for them, for kids now, if you know that, like, instead of asking for physical items, they want Robux so they can buy virtual cars to impress their friends. They want to buy the Gucci outfit for their avatar. And so we're seeing that kind of mentality.
Have you been talking to my son?
Yes.
Ideas.
But so when people are asking, like metaverse and Web3, like this seems so futuristic, so far away. No, if you have kids, you know this is already happening, and we're just waiting for the rest of the world to grow up or to catch up with these kids.
And Roblox actually had a fashion and beauty event in New York last night, so it's timely for that conversation. Dirk, I want to turn it to you. You're working with FIFA and some of the top sports properties in the world, as well as entertainment properties. What's your perception on kind of where the marketing and media industry is today in the U.S.? Let's start there in the U.S. versus perhaps globally, because it's a very different perspective if you go to Asia or Middle East. But in the U.S., where are you seeing the marketing and media companies as it relates to Web3?
Yeah, what we're seeing actually, that's just what Tipatat just mentioned also, that the younger generations, they're less using social media, right? They're much more in the 3D immersive spaces. So let's say us, the older ones, right? We are the like the scrolling generation, right? We go through the feed all the time, and now the younger kids are the strolling, right? They are in a space, they walk around and they see things. That means also that you, as the media company, right, have to change, how you approach your future customers, right? And that's very important. That means you have to share more of your IP, because your customers are now taking your IP and present it out to the world. So because in the old world, we were, media companies were very restrictive of things, right? But now if you say, hey, take your, we see that, take your Bored Ape and start a, burger joint or something like that, right? So you have to have a different thinking in order to get to these kind of target groups.
Paul, I'm going to turn it to you. So much of the conversation here in the Valley in the past 6 months, and frankly around the world, has been around generative AI. And so I think the question becomes, how do these technologies come together? What are you seeing sort of in the intersection of generative AI and Web3 or Metaverse?
Well, for us, for Audio Chain, obviously we're a music blockchain ecosystem. We've had, especially in the last maybe 2 months, there's been a lot of talk about generative AI music. And a lot of issues there because, the music industry is not liking this side of the technology because it's going to kind of diminish the creativity from the human aspect. What we're doing, I do come from the music industry as well. I used to work for Universal Music Group, so I've been on that side. But for us, what we're doing is we're combining both, because whether we want it or not, AI is going to be around forever. And we are at that epicenter right now where companies should benefit from this in a way where they can make protocols and products for people to still be a part of it. For example, if you're a music creator or an art creator, you are still the curator of that art, even if it's generative AI. So there can be, the way we're doing is we're going to be able to have music rights authentication with NFTs and entities when it comes to generative AI music. The human is going to be the curator and the claimant as well, and the AI is going to be the co-creator. So there is a balance there, but we cannot have it in balance to where the music industry is pushing it so much. They just need to learn, and I think that's where we are here for, to learn how these two things are going to interchange with each other.
We're learning every day. Anand, I want to talk to you about community. So I just flew in from Miami, some of the Formula One kind of pre-events, and there's an enormous community around global racing. There's a community around people. There's a community around art. So when we think about, a lot of the conversations I have with brands are about how are you building micro communities. I'd love to get your perspective as one of the early entrants and influencers in this space. How are you seeing the evolution of community?
As part of Layeri, we've helped some really cool brands into the Polygon ecosystem, into Web3. Adidas, Prada, the Bangalore International Airport, Flipkart, Walmart, and now with Disney and Starbucks, etc. What we've learned now is that the bear market is the best thing that could have happened to brands right now. Because there's no more of that pressure, right? Thank God I don't have to ape into this and make a fool of myself. So there is time for them to pause, to really consider these big questions like how do I form micro communities? And at the heart of that is the fact that both brands and communities kind of want the same thing. But there is this little bit of dissonance in between them. Brands are villainized, so like they want to. Their only purpose in life is to grab all of your private information. Not the case, right? And consumers are treated like angry adolescent children, where you want everything, but you're not going to give anything to us. That's where the blockchain space comes in, right? With things like zero knowledge proofs, right? You can authenticate yourself. You can make those connections to brands. You can give them verifiable, the most authentic user data without having to impinge on your privacy. And so that's what's going to really set things off this next wave onwards. And micro communities are definitely the answer. Nobody wants a one-size-fits-all kind of an approach, right? Everybody wants to feel special. And you do that in two ways. One, by creating communities that speak to you really closely. And two, by connecting them in a very tangible fashion. So you don't want 10 million faceless followers. You want very cohesive communities that you can bind together with just an NFT between you and the brand. I think that's where it's headed.
So TiEcon is certainly a community. Quick show of hands, how many folks in the audience have an NFT? Okay.
Impressive.
How many have traded any kind of crypto? Wow, okay. So there's still some education to be done on the NFT side. But I think what's interesting, I want to pivot to talk about physical digital experiences because we're all here, this is an amazing room. Folks want to get back to in-person at the same time that these decentralized technologies are coming to bear. Jeremiah, who's in the audience, does hackathons in AI. Wave Jeremiah, who's 5,000 plus people are attending his hackathons, right? Dirk and I think, have seen each other physically around the world in maybe 10 cities this year alone. So we want to get back in person, and brands and media companies really appreciate and know that about their customers. Their customers want to go see Super Mario Brothers at the box office, so they want to go to the Taylor Swift concert. So Dirk, I want to ask you, because you do so much work, and again, you mentioned sort of FIFA and others, how do you think about this balance of physical and digital? Where do you see it going, let's say in the next 12 to 24 months?
So I think it's going to move much closer to us. Maybe just to take a step back, how media and tech has evolved. When you think about like in the 1920s, you had actually black and white movies, and people were playing piano, right? And it was funny story is quickly there was actually a train on the screen, a black and white movie entering in a movie theater, right? On the screen the scene, and people were fleeing out of the movie theater because they thought it's real, right? And then when you now fast forward, media was coming closer and closer to us. Then we had TV, right? People were spending 5-6 hours a day to watch TV. Then we had a mobile device. You're using it all the time. And now you have the same thing. Of course, now we're getting more and more other devices. We're going to have maybe Apple announces something. We don't know, right? In a few days, right? This new device where people will have it maybe permanently on or not. We don't know yet. We're going to maybe replace the phone. However, this will merge now. The devices merge with us much more. But what is also happening then in the digital world, that we will start doing things, and especially when you think in the sports space, you will start doing a mission, start playing a small game in the virtual space or in the metaverse, and then you achieve a certain status. And because now you have the status, you have it on your phone, right? This is now your entry ticket. Now maybe before a sports event, you're allowed to go into a certain area, right, where actually maybe some superstars, sports stars are there. You can chat with them because you earned your way of going there. And now you've been in there, you're doing some stuff there, you're meeting maybe others, and again, you're collecting some points by completing some missions. And now you're able to go back to the virtual world, and now you can do something else because you did something in the real world. So the whole two things, the real world and the physical worlds, they are going to blur. And like in 10 years, or you said 5 years maybe, right? People will stop thinking about, okay, now I'm digital, now I'm virtual, right? Somehow it's somehow together for us.
Paul, I would love your perspective on the music space. I mentioned, Taylor Swift is just one of many. There's already mashups in music that we're seeing happening digitally. How is that going to play with the Coachellas and things of the future? Where do you see these worlds coming together?
I think holograms are going to be playing a big role in the future when it comes to, that entertainment creation on stage, or that physicality of it, or that experience of it. But I think we kind of had a little taste with the Tupac hologram. I can't remember when that was. Maybe like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Was it? Wow. So that is, one of the first times that, something like that happened. And I think that's going to be the case coming up next. We were just talking about, how these AIs are creating music and how these AIs will eventually be artists themselves. So you're going to have a version of Tupac or Taylor Swift. There is going to be a hologram AI version in the future.
Yeah, there was a really interesting Wall Street Journal article last week from Joanna Stern, who had a voice and video clone of her developed, and it actually tricked her bank into believing that it was her. So it's happening quickly. And we talked. Dirk mentioned Apple. I'd be remiss if I didn't sort of bring that up in the conversation today. I, for one, am very excited about the upcoming Apple mixed reality launch, no matter what the price point is, rumored to be somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000. Quick show of hands, how many of you in the audience would be interested in buying a mixed reality device from Apple? Okay, it's a pretty sizable number given that the price point would be that high. I think it's really interesting that Apple enters the space as an ecosystem play, not just as a one device. And so Tipatat, I want to turn it to you from an investment standpoint. How are you thinking about Apple's entry into maybe changing how we're all thinking about the metaverse? Because we know that Meta's sort of entry and pivots to AI has maybe somewhat damaged the notion of a metaverse world. What do you think the launch of Apple's device is going to do?
Well, I think it's interesting. Just to be clear, too, Mark Zuckerberg on the most recent call said, no, the press has it wrong. They did not pivot from metaverse to AI, and they're just as obsessed and driven about proving the metaverse and working on the metaverse. I think this is what's really important to understand. Like, why was Facebook, why did they rebrand themselves? Why do they care about the metaverse so much? And it was always about going after their real competitor, Apple. The reason why Facebook is doing so bad right now is not because they've been spending on the metaverse. It's because Apple changed the user ID so people could opt out, and that destroyed their advertising business, not just for Meta, but for Snap, for everyone else that's in Web 2 that relies on advertising as their business model. And so for Meta, when they rebranded, instead of fighting for the scraps of Web 2, they wanted to own Web 3. And the big thing for me, that means owning the App Store. And this is what Apple has done so well. They make so much money off the App Store. They make $1 million from Roblox every day, just being the App Store that publishes or where people can get access to Roblox on their iPhones. And so Meta really wants to own that and not be Apple's bitch. And that's why they're fighting so hard. But this is what it means. This is what's at stake. And this is why when Apple coming in to finally releasing their device, even though the first device I don't think will be the iPhone moment for the metaverse, it'll probably be more like the MacBook moment for the metaverse, but it's gonna usher in that when Apple does something, everyone has to pay attention.
Tipatat just gave you your tweet quote of this session, but Anand, I want to turn it to you. Apple, if not the best, is certainly one of the top companies in the world as it relates to customer experiences, consumer experiences. What do you think this moment of them releasing this device will do to change, or will it not change kind of our perception of this metaverse Web3 world that we're all entering in?
It's going to force the hand of a lot of people in the Web3 space, right? The one thing Apple does really well is to make you want stuff that you don't really need, right? So, that's why we had so many hands up, right? But it also means that people within the metaverse space, within the Web3 space, will have to change their tune. You're not this bastion of decentralization anymore. You have to start thinking about customer experience. You have to start thinking about building something that, not just 10,000 people will use, but think in the millions, right? And I think, in a way, what Apple's doing, in spite of it being completely contrarian to the ideologies of people within the Web3 space, they will adapt to it.
Paula, would love your perspective. Again, Apple has been a pioneer in music for many, many, many years. What do you think it does to the music industry?
I kind of feel the way Tipatat does. It's very centralized. I think in the music world we need more decentralization. I mean, coming from Web 3, I will say that. But I think they're definitely going to have to roll with the punches. Because there's other companies that are doing or trying to do the similar, protocol that they're doing. But I think I'm going to be very curious to the way that they're going to bring it into the market as well.
Okay, Dirk, just on that, I think Paula introduced a really interesting tension that exists between decentralization and centralization. That if Web 2 was the era of centralization, where the power lay with a couple of tech companies, the data lay with a couple of tech companies, we're now in this, and we're not just entering, we've been in for several years, this world of decentralization. And frankly, brands are nervous about that. Brands have controlled the data and their relationships with customers, and all of a sudden it's now a world where a customer has control of their data and ownership of assets. Where do you see, kind of, again, we are right now in terms of that tension between a world that wants to be decentralized and a world that is centralized at scale?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm an economist, and I have to say, the optimal, economic or societal system is actually not completely decentralized or centralized. When you think about it, you have two cost curves. One is the cost of centralization, one is the cost of decentralization. And where they meet, that's actually the optimum for society. And I think so that's also how it's going to look in the future. And now we're going a little bit full circle. Now AI came around. We have blockchain. So blockchain means basically true ownership of digital assets, right? And we have the metaverse. So what is going to happen also when you think about those big entertainment brands is that now everyone becomes a creator. I mean, we already have seen that with TikTok. TikTok has, everyone can now create this video. I mean, it was also possible before in a certain way with Twitter and Facebook, but TikTok was more on the video level. And it took away of people's time, right? Instead of watching, the latest Disney Mandalorian movie, right? They were now spending time on TikTok. So that is competition for Disney at the end of the day. Now, people are becoming creators even more. Now they can just tell the AI, hey, draw me a cat sitting on the roof or whatever. And all of a sudden, anyone can start selling that. And that's going to be very interesting that, again, coming back to the equilibrium, I think that's going to shift a little bit because we're going to have more consumers, but who are also becoming creators. But at the end of the day, we still need to have consumers who are consuming what the other new creators are creating, right? So that's going to be interesting to see. But I personally would be scared if I'm Disney or someone who has really big assets, big IP, because I'm in competition of all this user-generated content we are going to see.
Great perspective. And Cryptoys announced yesterday that they just did a partnership with Disney on Star Wars, which should be kind of a very interesting campaign to watch that roll out. Anand, we've got just a couple minutes left, so I want to leave this audience with a couple of nuggets that they can take away. And this is about the future of consumer experiences. So what is an experience that someone should walk away, or any brand or anything that's inspiring you, that they should walk away with maybe checking out after this session?
Hot take, but I don't think it exists yet. I think the one experience that might give consumers an aha moment has not come in yet, right? At least it's not Web3 or blockchain native yet. I think it's something that plays out over a period of time. Every company, Web3, Web2 or whatever, must focus on consumer experience, just delighting the customer, right? But the actual value that the blockchain space provides is going to be that sense of ownership and value capture. And that's not something you can push down people's throats at the first moment that they encounter you. It's something that plays out over a period of time. It's like you're jumping into a game, you've had fun for 3 months or 4 months, and then suddenly you realize these skins that you bought for hundreds of dollars, these assets that you purchased in-game, are suddenly yours. You can take them away from that little environment to anywhere else you want. That moment of, right, that delight, right, it doesn't happen on day one. So I think it's something that has to play out over a period of time. And also, right, when it comes to AI and every emerging technology, AI needs the blockchain, right? Because like we say, like Paula said, we can't put the genie back in the bottle. There's going to be a Cambrian explosion of creativity, but you need to capture value and authenticity and ownership somewhere. And you can't do that without the blockchain. That's the only value that the blockchain brings. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing your perspective. Tip, you see a lot and you're playing around with a lot. Give this audience one experience that they should check out.
I think specifically when we're talking about the metaverse and Web3, and this is a little bit of self-promotion, sorry, but one of my portfolio companies, they actually, they're called Baobab Studios, and they released an NFT collection called Momoguro, and this was just recently, but they did like $4 million, and this was like 2 months ago during the depth of the coldest part of the NFT winter. But they were still able to do $4 million in NFT sales, and now they've officially just launched the Roblox game where you can actually use the Momoguro NFTs in this game. And so this is interesting to combine like Web3, Web2 together in these kind of shared metaverse experiences and try to test out that hypothesis of having a digital asset that you can use across different platforms, which is kind of the thesis of what Web3 is about ownership. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But regardless of if you check out Momoguro, I would definitely recommend everyone spend time and see what your kids are doing, or what the younger generations are doing, whether it's in TikTok or Roblox or Fortnite, and understanding like this is the behavior of the future. Like when I was a kid growing up, we would go on Geocities, and that was like a very like simple, basic, social network, and that begat Facebook. And so Roblox will beget the new real metaverse in that same kind of way.
All right, everyone check out Baobab. Dirk, what's an experience that everyone should check out?
Well, I have to say, currently, of course, since Upland builds this super app now, we have a third-party developer platform, and we're seeing now amazing third-party apps coming onto Upland, which are sitting on top of Upland. However, they're completely in their own look and feel. So we're waiting for the Instagram moment. We want to provide the possibility for the Instagram moment. So for instance, right now we launched, not we, actually, a third-party developer launched a Rocket League type of game in Upland where you can then use your assets and so on. So it's very interesting to see that we will have, completely new types of games where true ownership is at the center of everything.
And Paula?
I would have to say on a macro level, it will have to be peer-to-peer transactions for every single industry. Micro will be, for my industry, it will be the fans related to the music and the artists. They're going to be able to collaborate more, and the fans are going to be able to actually get revenue from that as well.
Okay, I think our time is up, so I want to give a huge round of applause to this group. Thank you for joining us, Anand, Dirk, Paula, and Tipatat. And you can applaud yourself, too, for joining us this morning. Thank you, everyone, and stay for the rest of the show.